Burwellbeing with Sally Lander.
Hello, I'm Sally Lander, a yoga teacher living and teaching in Burwell. Welcome to Burwellbeing. Over the next few weeks and months, I'm going to interview some of the people at the centre of Burwell's well-being. And today, the 10th of February 2021, I'm speaking to the first friend I ever made in Burwell. I've known Jean Reeves, the president of Burwell Bells, our branch of the Women's Institute, since April 2018, when she opened the front door of the house on North Street she owned with her husband Martin to show us round. 7 months later, we moved into the house. Fortunately for us, Jean and Martin were just moving further into the centre of the village. My husband Jeremy and I became friends with Jean and Martin during the process of buying their house, and our friendship has thrived since. Jean has supported me in so many ways. For example, by helping with the chickens that came with the house, visiting my parents throughout the lockdowns in their house in Ashgrove, Burwell, coming to my yoga classes both in real life and online. She's responsible for a huge part of my happiness in Burwell, through our friendship and through the Burwell Bells. Our neighbour Chris Collins took me to the monthly meeting on my first full day in Burwell. There were around 50 women there of all ages, and I had so much fun. I really love the Burwell Bells and belong to the cookery and the garden groups, where I've learnt everything I know about Victoria sponges and spring bulbs and have made many more friends. Shortly after my introduction to the Burwell Bells, Jean and a new committee were voted in, with Jean taking the lead role of president. Little did they know what was in store with the pandemic. Jean set out to provide Burwell with all the cake its lonely heart needed in the first lockdown. She did have collaborators, and the team spirit was needed even more when she realised the need for masks. They made colourful ones, they made plain black ones, and they made special smile masks. The money they made went to Burwell Print and to carers, causes dear to Jean's heart. Jean is a former head teacher of a special school in Cambridge, and I think perhaps that's where she learnt her skills as a motivator and organiser. She can do anything. My friend, Jean Reeves. Good afternoon, Jean. Thank you so much for joining me. It's so lovely to see you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and for those kind words as well.
My first question, as you know, is to ask you, what is it that you love about Burwell?
Well, definitely the friendliness. The first thing that struck me when I came to Burwell was that people who I didn't know would smile at me in the street and say hello, which, I mean, I'd lived in Cambridge, which I loved, but we definitely didn't have that lovely feeling of friendliness there. And it's a large enough village to have something for everyone, I think. For example, the GP surgery is second to none, like, you know, the old-fashioned doctors who listen and who care and who call in on the frail and elderly, as well as the superb nurses and office staff. Then the village shop with the most community-spirited manager I've ever met in Steve Smith and the staff there. Then there's the walks, Priory Wood, where, you know, with the driving force of people like Sue Clifton, the community rallied round and planted all those trees for the millennium. Then, of course, the museum. I mean, what village has got such an amazing museum as we have? We're just so lucky. Also, I think we can be quite self-sufficient in Burwell.
Oh, thank you, Jean. That you moved here in 2012 with Martin?
Yes, we looked at houses in 2011. And as I said, I was living in Cambridge. And we wanted somewhere, we were getting married, and we wanted somewhere with a large garden and some workshops. And my daughter mentioned Burwell, and the only thing I knew about Burwell was Burwell House, where I'd taken school children. So then we moved, And then my parents followed. They felt that they were too far away from us in Cambridge, so they moved to Nest Court. And then that's when I really got to know people. I got to know the people at Nest Court, the elderly folk and the staff, the medics and the therapists. And then when my dad died in 2013, which was just a few weeks after their 75th wedding anniversary, Mum came and lived with us. And so we met a whole new group of people, other carers, Ellie at the day centre and Dr. Parry. So over the years, I got to know so many people and found that there was so much going on in Burwell, from clubs and societies to classes and walking groups. There were shops and, including little shops like Centrepiece where you could just sit and chat. And now I just can't imagine living anywhere else.
Thank you, Jean. And then so we wanted to move on to talk about your present, your major role in Burwell now. And so you wanted to tell us a bit more about the BBWI, or the Burwell Bells WI.
Burwell Bells, yes. Well, when we moved, Chris Collins, who lived next door to me and lives next door to you now, invited me to what was then just called the WI. And I was very pleased, but I thought, well, I don't know whether WI is me. My vision of WI was, well, Jam and Jerusalem, ladies in twin sets and pearls. But it soon changed. That very first meeting, I found the ladies so welcoming, and that meeting was so enjoyable. And so I carried on going and just found that we had inspiring speakers. It was a thriving WI, and Alison Dodds, who was the president then, was such an inspiring president. Every meeting, we forgot about our worries, we put the world to rights, maybe learnt a new skill or about a new subject. We would discuss maybe the latest resolutions, and we drank tea, ate cake and laughed. That's really how I came to be involved. And then over the years, well, I was soon on the committee, and then last year I was asked, would I like to be president? I wasn't really interested, but I said, well, I'd be happy to do it with another person, maybe have two presidents. But we were advised that wasn't the thing to do. So in the end, I said I would be president, but with good support. And in fact, the committee are amazing. And with the support, there are two vice presidents, so Val Rout and Isabel Baldwin, yeah. And all the committee have been so supportive. I mean, I couldn't have taken it on if I hadn't had the support of the committee. So that's why I'm where I am now. So did you want to know what Burwell Bells WI is all about?
Yes, absolutely, Jean.
Basically, the WI is one of the largest voluntary women's organisations. It was founded or formed in the UK in 1915 to provide agricultural support to local communities that were struggling as a result of the First World War. But by 1918, there were 12,000 members, and now there are 220,000. And the main aim is to make friends, to encourage new skills, and to offer a varied programme of activities. Now, we have speakers on a whole range of subjects, from Indian cookery to Tai Chi and yoga, of course, from glass blowing to gin, from molly dancing to walking back in time around Burwell. So there's a lot going on. But we are also, Burwell Bells and the whole of the WI, are a campaigning body for issues such as ending plastic soup. In other words, the issue of microplastic pollution. We have worked a lot on climate change and are the founding members as a WI of the Climate Coalition. So we put pressure on the government and on industry to find solutions for both these main campaigns, so the Ending Plastic Soup and climate change. One very relevant campaign lately, relevant to the situation we're in now, is the one on alleviating loneliness. It's so relevant for these troubled times. And basically, we are a strong pressure group who have a voice at government level to find solutions and to get involved in local campaigns. Now, Burwell Bells itself, one of the main projects, which I suppose has made it more high profile in the village, was when we realised that we needed more defibrillators in the village. So following a session that we had on the use of defibrillators in 2017, we realised that we could actually make a difference and raise money for another defibrillator. So after many months of preparing for this, the auction of promises took place, and the villagers, the people in the village, were so supportive and raised over £4,000 with and things on offer were anything from a dozen eggs from our chickens to a meal made for people in their own home. I remember Renata offered her narrowboat and offered to take someone to Ely for a trip. But the biggies were a meal at Midsummer House Restaurant in Cambridge, and I think it was either an aeroplane or a helicopter ride over Cambridge. Altogether, as I say, we raised enough for 2 defibrillators, both of which have been installed, one at Mandeville and one opposite you now in North Street. So that was amazing. But basically, the WI and Burwell Bells in particular is just what you want it to be as a member. If you just wanted to come along to the monthly meetings and chat with people, listen to the speaker, have a cup of tea, then that's absolutely fine. But also, if you are interested in being involved with people in special interest groups and you feel more comfortable in a small group, then we have a craft group, a cookery group, a gardening group, and a book group. And now, of course, they're all meeting on Zoom. So that's where we are now.
I don't know, do you want to tell us the story of how lockdown has affected your role and the WI in particular, how this pandemic year has affected Burwell Bells and you?
Well, yes, dramatically. When we first heard that we had to stay indoors, stay at home, of course we all thought it was only for 2 or 3 weeks, didn't we, to start with?
Yes.
But then as we realised that it was going to go on longer, I mean, I was really concerned about members, but particularly those who are living on their own, the older ladies and those with health issues. And I thought, what can I do? And there's around 50 of us, in fact, 53 now members. And I thought, I know, we're allowed to take daily exercise and we can take on a caring role. So I could combine these two and visit all members, but I didn't want to just knock on people's doors. I thought perhaps I could take along a little treat. So I started making scones and then cakes. And I would knock on somebody's door and then leave a little box of cakes or scones or whatever on their doorstep, stand well back by the gate and then have a chat. And it was just so lovely gradually over time, it wasn't just members I'd visit, Burwell Bells members. It would be other people who I heard about. So somebody would say, oh, could you just go and visit my mum and dad? We can't go with the kids because, the kids won't understand that they can't go in their house and so on. So I would visit other people as well. And on the one hand, it was heartbreaking seeing how lonely people were, but it was also heartening because just a little gift and a chat seemed to make, the world of difference. So that's where it started. But then people asked me, well, you're wearing a mask. Where did you get that from? And I said, well, actually, I made it. And they said, could you make me one? So I started making masks, but then I realised, unlike the cooking, that I just couldn't take on mask making on my own. And also I became aware that there were, I was asked about fundraising and why didn't I ask for money for the cakes? And I thought, well, the masks, we could actually ask for a donation. And I was aware that the carers, Burwell carers, needed help with funding, and also the Burwell Print Centre, whose printers were not able to go into the centre and who were really suffering, many of them at home, and needed something to look forward to when they actually went back to the centre. So I started a giving page. And also, this is when members of Burwell Bells became involved and the ladies started making masks. And they were just amazing. Many of them made over 100 masks on their own. And then people in the village some of the ladies in the village started helping as well. So that was another way of getting to know people. And people in the village would donate on a giving page, but they were so generous. They would donate many times more than the masks were actually worth. But then one of our members, Mandy Smith, said, well, I've had problems. I've had a cochlear implant and I can't hear when I go into shops. We need to make some smile masks. If I make one, could that be a prototype? So she made one by hand. She hadn't got a sewing machine. And then I tried a few different designs. And we decided on one. And then the other members got involved. And we were able to raise more funds and made over 200 of these smile masks, which actually they take quite a long time to make. So
yes, can you describe what they are, Jean, for people who don't know?
Well, it's a normal mask, but it's got a plastic window over your lips so that the person who you're talking to can actually see what you're saying. They can lip read and they can hear better. And they can also see your expression, hence the name smile masks. So they were very, very good for people who needed to lip read. But also we found that people with autism found masks very off-putting and got upset. So if the person talking to them was wearing a smile mask, that helped a lot. And then there were ladies or people, elderly people mainly, with dementia. And they didn't always, they got confused sometimes with the masks. So they did help an awful lot of people. And then through this mask making, we made over £4,000, which, I mean, originally I thought 500, and then it was 1,000, 2,000, and then 4,000. Well, I mean, that was just amazing. So for carers, and that was Caring Together, the umbrella organisation, and the Burwell Print Centre. So they benefited and were very grateful for all the funds that we raised.
That's absolutely brilliant, Jean.
Yeah.
And with the meetings, you had to move them online, didn't you, quite early? So you had to stop the in-person meetings, didn't you, quite early in the lockdown?
Yes, we did. And the meetings came on, we put them on Zoom, the monthly meetings to start with, and then the cookery meetings, which was great fun because we started cooking together, but we also started eating together. So that was great fun. And the book club on Zoom as well, which was very, very enjoyable, just, discussing the books that we'd read. And now a craft club and the gardening club are on Zoom as well. So that's been wonderful.
And I know that you offer to help people. If there's anybody who's worried about getting on Zoom, you will, get in touch and try and talk them through it and reassure them, but also talk through the technical issues. Because it is a lot easier than you think, isn't it? We've got so many people now who thought they couldn't, who are managing beautifully now, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's taking that leap of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think people who are wary anyway of using, even emails and using the browser, and that sort of thing. It's just helping them, but it's really quite simple, isn't it?
So I wanted to move away a little bit about from lockdown and from coronavirus to, I'd love you to tell us about some of the people in the WI, some stories or some memories.
Yes. Oh, I've got some really fond memories. One of the first ones was the Millennium Tree, which we planted over by the Mandeville Hall, which is a crabapple tree. And it was planted partly in memory of Joyce Marsh, who was a very active member of the WI years ago. And she the WI had planted a tree in her memory, but it had got blown over and wasn't there anymore. So it was partly in her memory, but partly just, because it was the millennium. And so that tree is thriving. It's a crabapple tree, and it's got the most beautiful blossom in, the early summer. So I always think of that, whenever I drive past or walk past the tree. One of the other things was, and you'll remember this, Sally, was when we had Desert Island Discs, and Joan White, our oldest member of the WI, was invited to be in the chair for Desert Island Discs, and she was asked what her favourite book was. And she said Alice in Wonderland. Can you remember that?
Yes, it was lovely, wasn't it?
She said that, unfortunately, and she had told me this earlier on, that she had given it away to one of her nieces, I think, but she regretted not having that any longer. And you had actually brought along an Alice in Wonderland from the library, hadn't you? And so we read a piece from that. And also, we bought her a copy. I think it was a special centenary copy of Alice in Wonderland, and she was so pleased with that. And then when I asked her what her luxury would be on a desert island, she said, of all things, a penknife. And here we have a 94-year-old lady who, good for her, she wanted a penknife. And that would be a really useful,
really practical. Yes, it was a lovely evening.
Yeah, and you actually said for your luxury you would have a bolster, which we had a good laugh about that. That was lovely. Two other things, really lovely memories. One month, as happens very occasionally, the speaker was ill and so wasn't able to come. So somebody suggested asking Barbara Redman, who does a lot of, craft and sewing and cards and so on. And so I asked Barbara, and she said, yes, she'd come along. And so that was the meeting that we were actually saved by hedgehogs, because Barbara brought along with her about 50 old paperbacks that had fallen apart. And she showed us how to make hedgehogs from these old paperbacks. It was a kind of origami, but it was so simple that we were able to, while we were doing it, after she demonstrated, while we were doing it, we were able to just sit and chat, which was lovely. And when I go round, which I don't now, but before lockdown, anybody's house, they often still have a hedgehog. Did you make?
Yes. That was my first meeting. And I had such a fantastic time. I had so much fun talking, and I absolutely love my hedgehog. And I've still got it. It's up on the shelf amongst the indoor plants.
Yeah.
Lovely. And also, Jean, that evening was a special celebration, and we had sherry, which I didn't realise wasn't a monthly occurrence. So
now I think
normally have tea, don't we? But it was
we had sherry. It was the birthday of Burwell WI, and Linda had made and decorated a cake. Linda Hagen, one of her wonderful cakes, and I said to Linda, when she said, "How old are we actually?" And I said, "Well, I'm pretty sure that we're 83." So she put 83 on the cake. Well, we weren't 83 at all. We were 82.
Oh.
Anyway, the funny thing about it was, the irony of it was that, of course, when we were 83, we weren't able to have a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah? So we had a good laugh about that anyway.
I wondered if you could tell us something sort of more personal a little bit. Could you tell us what your challenges are for your personal health and well-being, and where you find solutions for these issues? So it's, partly to give advice to other people.
Well, I'm actually very lucky because I'm really blessed with good health. Going for a good walk, I think, and getting out in the fresh air, I just find really helpful. As you know, I've got Luna, our greyhound, who's not always very keen on going out, and I'm also helped by having a wonderful family and friends. I think keeping in touch with others and staying active, doing yoga, of course, and voluntary work as well. Although it's not so easy at the moment, those are the sort of things that I would suggest. I would say take each day one day at a time and just take pleasure in the moment without thinking too much about the future, about when you can do this or that, like when we can hug.
Yes.
And getting too upset about it, when we can meet again, when we can go on holiday. And we won't be able to do all these things at once. But eventually we will. And gradually, over time, I think we'll actually look back on this time, and we'll look back on the sense of community and just the little acts of kindness, like helping a neighbour, having a phone call from someone. And it will happen. But if we're lonely, I think just talking to others, I find talking and chatting with friends really therapeutic if I do happen to feel a bit low. For those who maybe haven't got friends, if they might have just moved to the village, and I have met one or two people who moved since lockdown, and I think that's tough. You might be able to talk to the vicar or the doctor, or you can ring me if you like, and I might be able to put you in touch with someone, but talk.
Brilliant.
And of course, join the Burwell Bells.
And yes, so what is the best way to find out about the Burwell Bells, and to get in touch?
If you actually just Google the WI, the Women's Institute, there's a facility there for looking up your local.
Okay, great. So you can get in touch that way.
There is one thing that I would love to mention, if I could, before I go.
Yes, absolutely. We want to get onto that, don't we?
One of the things that the Burwell Bells are going to organise is a Burwell Easter window competition, open to anybody in Burwell, just so that we can brighten up our windows, as many people did at Christmas time, but this time for Easter. It doesn't need to be necessarily a religious presentation in the window. It can be Easter bunnies and Easter eggs or whatever. And particularly, I think children might get involved in this, but adults as well. And it is a competition, and there will be prizes. And Steve, our lovely manager at the co-op, said he will let us have some Easter eggs for prizes, which will be lovely. We might make it one with a small donation for people who want to, but I will let you know about this, and we'll put more on Facebook, on the village Facebook, about the competition. So it's really watch this space and see if we can brighten up the village for Easter.
Oh, lovely, Jean. What a great idea. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you very soon, either on Zoom or in real life.
Lovely talking to you. Bye.
Bye, Jean.
Burwellbeing with Sally Lander.